Hi, I'm Catherine Llewellyn, the host of the podcast. You can find out all about Truth and Transcendence on truthandtranscendence.com. And you can find out all about me on beingspace.world, where you will find my online coaching offering, as well as my UK-based workshops. The Freedom of Spirit workshop for liberation and empowerment, the Pellower Radical Shift in Consciousness workshop for spiritual expansion, and transformational coaching for exploring the mind-body-spirit connection on the expansive path. You can also support the podcast by actually making a donation. I hope you enjoy the show. Welcome to Truth and Transcendence. You can find all our episodes on truthandtranscendence.com. So today I'm going to give you a little recipe for reclaiming your freedom of spirit. And the reason I'm going to do this is because you probably know I'm currently delivering various different offerings to help people do exactly this. But it occurred to me that actually everything we're doing in any of these offerings is something that you could actually go and do either on your own or by calling on the help of various people wherever you are in the world. So I thought if I actually tell you something of what this recipe is, that might give you a bit more of an idea of what I'm doing, in which case, if you want to come and do it with me, you can. But otherwise, it will give you some information that you can take away and use yourself or with your own personal favorite coach or group facilitator or learning community, or whatever it is that you might be involved with. And this is interesting. How did I come to this? Because I kind of hit on this idea of focusing on reclaiming our innate and inherent freedom of spirit early 2024. And I can tell you the story of how that happened. I've spoken about it on numerous podcasts. So I'm not going to go into detail now, but essentially the basis of it was that I was in a place and time when I wanted to bring through something to help people that was based on a particular advantage or core strength or core capability that I had and had for my whole life and had been able to work on and evolve and expand for my entire life. And that turned out to be freedom of spirit. So my first challenge with that was to say, okay, how can I possibly convey and share some of what I have in relation to that with other people without having to drag them through multiple decades of the experiences that I went through? Obviously, that's completely not going to happen. And equally, how can I do that in such a way that they are reclaiming their freedom of spirit rather than attempting to emulate my personal manifestation and version of freedom of spirit, which would not be freedom. It would just be an act. So what I came up with initially was a 2-day workshop. And of course, on the workshop, you can really dive in depth. And something that's evolved from that now is follow-up trainings and workshops where people can actually train to deliver that workshop. And I then thought, well, supposing there are people who would like to engage with this a little bit more simply, a little bit more easily, perhaps, than taking the time out and perhaps traveling to the UK for a workshop. And while I was going through all of this, I realized that there were 3 distinct components to this particular journey of reclaiming freedom of spirit. And I think these are universal. So the first component, which I think is the one that is the key to unlock the ability to even start on the journey. And that first component is where we say we actually own the fact that we have, to some extent, self-suppressed our own freedom of spirit, that we have, to some extent, self-isolated ourselves from our inherent freedom of spirit. Now, why is it important to do that? Well, the reason it's important to do that is because if we don't, then we don't have access to the inner resources required for us to reclaim and celebrate and manifest and express our full and true freedom. because we're working without the full information. We're working without the full command of our toolkit. There's something remarkable that happens, and I'm sure you've experienced this at some point or another in your life. There's something remarkable that happens when we look at a situation that we're in that may be less than ideal, less than optimum situation or a set of circumstances, where we are able somehow to recognize how we have contributed ourselves to that taking place and that occurring. When we're able to do that, when we're able to move past any self-criticism for that, any self-blame, any wallowing as a result of noticing that, that gives us a key to unlock the door, to step on the path to resolving whatever the situation is. And that is much more self-empowering than analyzing the external factors that have helped bring about that situation. Obviously, we can't ignore the external factors. So let's say you grew up in an oppressive family culture. Let's say you went to a school with an oppressive culture. Let's say you were particularly hesitant and passive about asking for what you wanted. Maybe you were overly self-sacrificing when you were younger, and perhaps even now. Maybe there's all sorts of things that may have been happening or you may have been encouraged in you by external factors. The truth is that nevertheless, the way you responded to that is all you. The choices you made are all you. The adaptations you made, the particular brand of conformity that you did is all you, regardless of whether or not you did it consciously. And I'm here to tell you that most of it you couldn't have done consciously because you were very young, very young. You were still trying to work out basic things like, how to make a friend, how to do the hopping, skipping game without landing on your face. All these things we're learning as children, which are deeply and profoundly significant and important. Things like being conscious about our own self-suppression is just completely outside of anything we can even think about. So it's natural that we will do this. So anything that you can do in your life that helps you to recognize ways in which you may have self-suppressed your own freedom of spirit is the first step on the path. The second step on the path is starting to get some sort of idea of what you, the total liberated you, standing in your sovereignty, with your power intact, what does that look like? What does that feel like? How does that manifest? What might be going on in your life? Now, there are many, many ways to do this, whether it's meditation, whether it's conversations, whether it's therapy, whether it's going on vision quests, whatever it might be, there are multiple ways to do it. This is a fantastic thing to do, very, very exciting. And that's step 2. And then step 3 is looking at what are the barriers likely to be for you on that path, and what are the resources that you already have within you that are going to help you deal with those barriers. Now, the thing about those 3 steps is whenever you follow those 3 steps, 1, 2, and 3, you accelerate yourself along the path of freedom of spirit. Now, I'm going to say to you that you are already on that path. How do I know that? Because as you have come to adulthood, you will have already started to notice aspects in which you feel a little bit restricted or a bit suppressed, or where you feel that you've got resources within you that you're not quite accessing or not quite bringing out. And even if you're a highly self-actualized being, even if you are really quite evolved and standing in your sovereignty, there will still be a degree of that going on with you. So for all of us, we have that impetus to reclaim that inner freedom of spirit and to really flourish and blossom and express that and bring it into our everyday lives. We all have that going on to some degree, I would suggest. The other reason I say we're all on that path is because we can't help it as we grow through our lives, but to gather wisdom and experience. It's inevitable. And the ultimate freedom of spirit is the full release and elevation and transcendence that occurs when we leave behind this particular corporeal identity and existence and move into the realm of pure spirit, because that's the realm of ultimate freedom of spirit. And we are all on our way there. So we're all on the path already. And along the path, these are the three components I've identified that we can use consciously by our own free choice to help accelerate ourselves along that path. So that as much as possible of our lives is lived within the beautiful frame of freedom of spirit. Now, as I mentioned, this 2-day workshop that I run, we cover those three and we kind of cycle around them. We do some really lovely, beautiful, deep work. But actually, for those who are overseas and those who would like to experience a slightly gentler and yet still highly significant experience on a one-to-one basis, you can actually contact me and do that. And the way we do this is we do 3 sessions of 70 minutes each. And we do each of those 3 components, the first one in session 1, the second one in session 2, and the third one in session 3. And because you're working with me, and I've been working with this particular essence of life, if you like, for my entire life, and because I've been working for the last 18 months with ways of conveying this and helping other people to embrace it, this actually makes it easier. You get quicker access to these goodies and these beautiful revelations. You obviously do some assignments in between sessions as well. And after you've done those 3 sessions, anytime you want, you can come back for a top-up activation single session, which will keep you going on the path. So if you'd like to know more about that, you will discover on my website, there's a clarity call that you can book. And my website is beingspace.world. And if you don't feel attracted to that, then please do explore in your own life those 3 components. Can you find ways to really reclaim ownership of ways in which you may have suppressed or denied your own freedom of spirit? Can you in your own life tune into what does it look like when you are the ultimate released, activated, fully realized, free spirit in every area of your life? And thirdly, and lastly, can you explore what are the barriers that you may encounter along that path? And what are the resources you already have within you that you can bring to bear to address and meet those barriers and challenges? Because you do have them. So thank you for listening and watching. That's all from Truth and Transcendence for today. Please give a thumbs up, a 5-star rating, tell your friends, and help spread the podcast word far and wide. Because this podcast is doing a lot of people a lot of good, and I'm so thrilled by that. I feel so privileged to be able to be involved with this particular project. So until next time, have a fantastic week, and I wish you much freedom of spirit. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode. It really helps if you give a thumbs up, a 5-star rating, a review, and share with your friends. If you're looking for transformational coaching or an intensive transformational weekend workshop experience, I can help with that. You can actually help the show by making a donation. Until next time, take care.